Working with David Lean, I mean, he'd had a quiet period of about 13 years, I think, 14 years since Ryan's Daughter, which, because I think it was not received well by the critics and they were pretty unkind about it, I think drove him into sort of self-imposed exile, sort of wilderness years. And so when it was out that he was going to make another film, it was a great privilege, because I mean, he was a great bit of British history.
He represented to everybody in the industry probably the greatest living filmmaker of his era, and it was extremely. I was extremely worried by the prospect, because I was only 30 at the time, and there I was due to work with a legend who was surrounded by all sorts of other legends from the business, people who had worked on endless productions of his, which were endless in their quantity but also in their shooting time. So I had a vision perhaps of being out there longer than it was due to be.
Everybody was terrified of his uncontrollability in theory. But in fact, when I worked with him, he was the most orderly, I mean, compared with other directors, the most orderly and frugal with film stock and that sort of thing, any director I've ever worked with. Unbelievable. Because, having been an editor, he knew exactly what shots he needed. And that's really what made him write the script himself.
Well, one of the things I remember about the script, which happened once we'd got out to India, David, he was very much the old school, and I remember Peggy Ashcroft saying, wouldn't it be a good idea if we had a read-through, which of course you do in many films, you certainly do in theatre and you do in television, and we all thought that would be a great idea. And so she suggested it to David.
Oh my God, there's going to be trouble here. So David said, but when? I mean, we're shooting every day, on Sunday. He said, that's my day off. Anyway, she got away, and so we all had to go into this huge room. And David said to me, what happens at a read-through? Because he's never done one. So we sit around and read it. He said, that's ridiculous. We've already started shooting. Anyway, it was quite interesting, because we all sat there, and he then sort of grabbed the script and said, well, I'll talk you through this. And it took all day. But he had every single shot in his head. So my mouth was open the whole day, because I saw the whole film. He would describe the scene, each cut, we'd read the scene, he'd describe the next scene, each shot. And actually, it was a hell of a good thing to do, because we saw every single moment of the film from there on in, and he didn't change a thing.
David was an utter perfectionist who did not really accept compromise. And I think he found it difficult sometimes when people, particularly actors, would come to him with a suggestion, which is understandable. I mean, the process of making a film is organic. So an actor will come up with an idea and will want to perhaps put forward an option of saying it a different way or doing it in a different style. And this sometimes proved to be a little bit of a difficult area with David, because he had very set ideas about how he felt it was to be. The actors to him were part of the crew, and they were there to do the job, and they were there to do his bidding. And controversy sometimes raised its head when there were some sort of different approaches to characters and to ideas.
He wasn't great with actors. He wasn't terribly helpful with actors. I mean, one of the things which he did, which I always found very strange, was when he gave you a note, he would come up and whisper it to you, even though you'd be in the scene as well. He would come up and say, "Richard, dear boy," and I just said, "Yes, David, of course." But he was slightly aware of the fact that he was a technical director and didn't like actors.
Well, I always remember about David Lean that he seemed to be particularly easy with what I call his middlemen, the people playing the character parts.
Mrs. Leslie, it is a Tonga. Come.
We were allowed to get on with our jobs, I think, in a way that wasn't as problematic as it might have been for some of the people playing the leading parts. He was a dictator. He was a big man in every way, and I think people were quite unhappy sometimes working for him. I think he bossed them about a lot.
he got slightly fed up with all the actors and everybody around. And, you know, he was complaining a bit about Peggy and Alec and probably me. I remember he was quite grumpy with me in Kashmir. So, you know, you just knew he got a bit grumpy, bit fed up with it.
The one thing he always loathed about actors was the, you know, the highlighter pen. You know, because that's a really good one for actors, because it helps, you know, you can just kind of highlight your bits and you can get to them quicker, know what they are, they spring up at you better. And his thing was I once asked him, I said, what do you loathe about actors then? You must loathe something about actors. And he said, highlighter pens. I said, what's that about? It's like you give them a script which you've worked on for years and years and years, and there it is. And they go, oh, me. He said, you've got to know where you're coming from and where you're going to. We are telling a story. We are trying to work together here. What's the matter with you all? Throw the fucking things away. Anyway, there you go.
I adored him, by the way. I thought he was just a hell of a guy. He didn't get on with everybody. I don't think he, you know, at that stage of his life, he was quite short-tempered, and what he wanted to get there and then. A bit impatient, but I just thought he was God to me.
He was very sweet and nice, but he was a bit distant, not deliberately or anything like that, you know, because he knew when the work was being done well, he just sort of acknowledged it and went on. He was more of a imaginist, visualist. In his mind, you could see the way he was wanting the film, a particular scene to be done, how it would look on the screen. You could feel that.
There's a scene with myself, James Fox, and Said Jaffrey, and we're walking towards the camera, and the camera sort of pulls back, and then we sit down around this coffee table. So you can imagine behind us is a whole street of life going on. And the camera goes, boom, 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 boom. It's on the first take, and we sit down, and we do our scene, and he goes, cut, and he comes up, and he goes, lovely, lads, lovely, lovely. The red shirt, the red shirt on the clothesline, can we change it for yellow, please? And you turn round, and about 300 yards away in the background is a clothesline with a red shirt on it. Now, his idea was that when you blow that image up, no one is going to be looking at my three actors. They're going to be looking at a red shirt. Change it for yellow.
The great thing about working with David was his visual sense. And I remember we went, it was a scene where the arrival of the train, we'd travelled out to the countryside somewhere with 200 or 300 extras, a brass band and a platoon of the Indian Army to shoot this scene. And it poured with rain. It just poured down for most of the day, and everyone was stuck in tents. And there was a little lull in the rain, and I went out, and on the platform there was David standing by himself looking at this train which was going to be used. And I said, very tough luck, this weather, David, with all these people. He said, yes, dear boy. Just look at this train here. I said, yes. He said, you see the front? I said, yes, which had a black front. He said, don't you think that would be better red? I said, yes, David, I think it would. So this man was called, and there was 300 extras and a brass band. He said, and he watched while this was painted, and he said, isn't that better? I said, yes, much, much better. He was a master of the visual.
We shot a sequence at the railway station when there's a whole, the story of Aziz and Adela has sort of broken, and I'm sort of guiding Peggy through this crowd. And as we were rehearsing, David said, oh my God, cut. This is appalling. Cut. And we said, what's the matter? He said, well, the station is painted the same colour as Peggy's hair. We'll have to repaint the station. So we all went back to our club, and for 2 days while they repainted the station.
He really believed in looking through the lens, and he really believed in absolutely knowing exactly what was happening in that frame, of course, besides knowing all about lighting and the actual meaning of each lens and focus and so forth. A tremendous technician. It's very unusual to marry both a technician with an emotional ability, and the best directors have both. And of course, he had both, and it's rare.
The other great thing about David is he had a great way to give every actor a wonderful entrance into a movie. He was known for it. Look at the entrance in Lawrence of Arabia of Omar Sharif, on the camel. What an entrance was that! Anyway, I remember shooting in the station in Bangalore, and it's my entrance into the movie. He said, I think I've got a nice shot for you. And the train arrives, and I walk through to meet my mother. I mean, it's lit. It's a heavenly shot, and he even makes me look halfway all right.
Hello, Mother.
I think David Lean was the most remarkable director I ever worked for, but he was also one of the most remarkable men I ever met. And he was just an astonishing person, passionate about what he did, and absolutely focused. He was a most extraordinary craftsman, and his ability to put pictures together and to tell stories was absolutely remarkable.
The thing is that I think that 30, 40, 50 years ago, people had a much more rounded training in films. They had to do everything. And nowadays, everybody's a specialist at something or other, and it's completely different. You always said that he was a Boy Scout. He was ready to go anywhere and do anything and make a film about anything, really. And that's what I think his contribution was. He wasn't a specialist. He was just very, very good at it, at everything.
The legacy he leaves of great, epic, classical filmmaking is beyond reproach, and no one can touch it, never will touch it, because we don't make films like that anymore. And if they do, it's false, it's a fake. Where all his stuff is real. So he is unique.